Where do you find God? Almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? I mean, if God was someone you could find, wouldn't everyone be out searching? Well, rather than looking for something elusive, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I reckon it's more about learning to recognise the way God is already present to us in our everyday lives. I'm Lizzie Oakes, and this is Where Do You Find God? My guest on the podcast today is zooming in all the way from Saskatoon in Canada. Tianna Williams is an artist who grew up embracing her creative side. And in 2020, she made the leap of faith to make her painting as a vocation, where she creates sacred art. She paints the saints. I will put it in the show notes, but just if you're chomping at the bit to check it out, Sacred Art by Tianna, TIANNA.com. Tianna, welcome to Where Do You Find God?
Thank you so much for having me.
The wonders of technology, right? Isn't it great that we can just connect?
It's amazing.
And are you sitting there in your studio? I can see a bit of art on the wall.
Yes, it's my little basement studio. I've got a whole setup here where I can fill orders and, of course, paint.
That's so cool. I don't know a lot about art, but I love art. But would you call your art photorealism? It sort of looks like that to me.
People describe it that way.
Okay.
It would be more on the realistic side with a bit of stylizing to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely not abstract.
No, it's definitely not abstract. The beginning, the genesis of this is when I understand you fell pregnant. Tell us about that, Tianna.
Was artistic my whole life, but I didn't actually do a lot of painting as a kid. It was something I picked up shortly after I was married. And at first it was entirely just for fun. And, it's just random things like landscapes and stuff. And then, I found out I was pregnant and I wanted a special way to tell my husband. So I ran out to the art store and I grabbed a canvas and some paints and I whipped up a painting of Pregnant Mary in a couple of hours. My husband walked through the door. He took one look at it and he knew right away. But that painting came together with such grace. I thought, hey, why don't I try a few more? So I painted Pope St. John Paul II next. And that also came together with so much grace that I thought, I'm going to paint a whole series of saints and hang them in my kid's bedroom. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
They're still hanging there to this day.
Yeah. So, Tianna, in Acts chapter 17, verse 27, it says, God intended that they would seek him and reach out for him, though he be not far from us. So my question for you today, Tianna, is where do you find God?
Oh, I love that question. I experience God like the ground that we stand on. It's always there. It's always supporting us, even if we're not always aware of it. But if you tune in, you realize that it's been there the whole time. Mm. And once you tune in, you realize that he's always speaking to us. If you're curious and listening, he's always got something that he wants to speak to your heart. And that might come through a memory, an emotion, and for me, in a special way, through beauty. And that might be the beauty of nature, the way the light hits the trees, and through art, of course. And that's a big part of why I make art, is because that is such a tangible way for people to encounter God.
Yeah. And I think with you being an artist, like it's all about light when you're a painter, right? And
yes.
You were talking about the light hitting the trees. I think as a creative and an artist, God actually gives you eyes to see that some of the other of us might not see.
Yeah. And especially living in a part of the world that isn't the most beautiful. I've lived in some towns that completely lacking in natural beauty. You learn to find beauty even in that. And a big part of that is the light.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your painting practice, I know you've got a couple of young children, and you mentioned off air that you're also pregnant. Again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You call your art sacred art. Is it like your sacred space with God when you paint?
Yeah, it's a really special time every time I sit down to paint. I usually paint in the evening after the kids are in bed so that I can just completely focus and tune the rest of the world out. And I go into every painting session with a prayer, just asking God to meet me in that space and guide my brush. And I just lose myself in it.
And what's it like when you've prayed that prayer and you're meeting God in that space with your brush? What does that answered prayer look like or feel like, or, you know?
Well, of course, I'm painting the saints, right? And the saints are alive. And so they can journey with us. And I find that every saint that I paint journeys with me in a unique way. And so I find that journey is not just within the painting session itself, but my whole life at that time. So, for example, last year I painted Saint Benedict, and he was one of those saints I was always familiar with, but I didn't know a lot about. And journeying with him was just incredible. He really showed me the importance and the value of silence and listening to God in the silence. And my heart healed so much in those months that I was painting him. And I was able to get rid of some bad habits that I had been fighting for years. In particular, just like social media use, phone use, and I attribute it to his intercession and his aid as I journeyed with him through painting his image.
That's incredible. Well, you've done that thing to me where I've gone a little bit speechless. Doesn't happen very often. So you're painting these paintings, you're journeying with God, but the saints that you're painting, you're journeying with them and going into their story and being impacted so that your own life and some habits are changing.
Actually, yeah.
It's unreal. I bet you never imagined that, did you, when you started this journey back in 2020?
Actually, I started painting in 2015, so it's been, we're coming up on 10 years now. My wedding anniversary is coming up.
Oh, that's lovely.
I mean, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be making art full time, I would have been like, what? Because I wasn't even painting at all. I thought I was going to be a graphic and web designer forever. That's what I was doing. That's what my mom did. It made sense, something I could do from home. And that journey towards becoming a full-time sacred artist happened very organically, very, very naturally. I, just started with a few personal pieces, slowly built up a collection, and then decided one day, hey, why don't I see how the world receives this? And
give it a shot.
Received it so positively that I was like, hey, let's keep going. And here I am.
It's just like that scripture, isn't it, about that he gives us more than we had hoped or imagined.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So in this sacred space with this art and this time with, what's this God like that you encounter in this art space? What's the character of God for you?
Character of God. So I grew up in a very faithful home. My dad is a Catholic singer-songwriter and evangelist, so I always had a faith. But it wasn't until my teens that my faith really became my own, like an adult faith. And in particular, there was a big shift when I was about 19, where I came to see God as my beloved, that he was mine and I am his. And to this day, that's really how I experience God, is like that secret glance from across the room when you just hold each other's gaze and get lost in each other just for a moment and no one else notices, right? And he's always trying to win me, always trying to remind me of my beauty and my worth in his eyes. And, it's easy to forget that in the busyness of life and the world. But when I stop and spend time with him, he always reminds me of that.
That is so beautiful. Tianna Williams, thank you so much for joining me today on Where Do You Find God?
Thank you so much for having me.
If you'd like to listen again, tune in to Sanctuary on Wednesdays at 1:30 p.m. or listen and subscribe via your favourite podcast app and give us a review so other people can find us.